I don't know the song, but I'm the beat. Something, something, yeah, it's a bad romance. The Invisible Life of Addie Larue by V.E. Schwab. I have not reviewed a Schwab book since I tried the Shades of Magic series, which I had mixed opinions on. I thought it was very well written, I just wasn't super engaged by the story. But I had a lot of hope for my future with Schwab work because I saw the potential, and she's clearly a very, very talented writer. So I picked up The Invisible Life of Addie Larue with high expectations because apparently she's been working on this one for ages. And you know, it's endorsed by Neil Gaiman on the back. That's a pretty rad endorsement. And for those of you who do not know, the spoiler-free kind of just basic pitch for The Invisible Life of Addie Larue is there is a woman who is wandering the world as an immortal who no one can remember. Everyone who comes in contact with her, if you have a conversation, you turn away for too long, you turn back, you're like, oh, hey, hi, who are you? Nice to meet you. And it is a curse. It's a very well realized curse. In fact, it's maybe the best realized curse I have come across in ages outside of like literary classics. So stupendously done. But let's go ahead and get into my overall review of this book. And I'm really not going to say more about the story beyond that because I don't want to spoil anything about the slow unraveling of what has occurred and what the progression through her life is going to be, because that's really where the enjoyment comes from here. Now, I do have a couple criticisms I want to get into, but I want you to know the overwhelming opinion of this book is extremely positive. I finished it in the Atlanta airport, and like as I closed the book, I just looked around me with this incredibly hollow feeling like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life anymore. The post-book depression was real. Merch plug! And it's been a while since a book has made me feel that way. Like a very long while. It's been, I don't know, I'm becoming like hardened as I get deeper and deeper into being a book critic. This one raised the feels. Criticisms first, though. There is a chunk of this book towards the later third that starts to feel a bit repetitive. We are jumping back and forth in time, and I can tell what exactly Schwab was trying to do here in setting up a back and forth and repetition and slow evolution of these two relationship dynamics. It did just feel like exactly what she wanted to accomplish could have been accomplished a bit more condensed, though that's a small complaint. I never was bored and it didn't feel like a slog at any point. And as I said, we are jumping through time though, and the character Addie Larue does speak in a more modern slang tongue throughout history, which does not make sense with context of the character. I guess it could be because the way the book is being presented to us in a way that I'm not going to spoil, it could be justified, but it's something that did bother me a bit where it's like, oh, we're back in like 1840 and you're speaking like a rapscallion today. So that one, I'm not even sure if I'm really holding against the book because I think it may be more justified than I'm actually giving it credit for now that I'm speaking on it. But aside from that, wow, do I have a lot positive to say here. The repetition I mentioned is a certain kind in a chunk of the book that is a criticism I have, but there is a different kind of repetition that permeates this story that is deliberate and delivers the exact feeling it intends to the reader. It's just so beautiful. At no point was I not cherishing like every single word chosen. There was incredible conveying of emotion and like I'm a hardened masculine toxic male. Blah. You know what I mean? Like I'm a typical dude, but I still felt myself just my heart bleeding for these characters. Like I wanted them to do better, feel more. And I don't want to speak for the author. I don't know her life experiences, but Schwab has displayed for me an extraordinary understanding of what it is like to feel the things these characters are going through. Obviously not in a literal sense because supernatural things are at play, but in a loose, there has to be some kind of, you understand what tragedy is to be able to write it so beautifully and accurately. There were genuinely a couple emotions, a couple of real hits here in this book that I've felt in my life that I never thought I would be able to have pulled out of me so aggressively from an author that Schwab nailed. Like, she just, yes, that is the feeling. I could have never put it into words like that, but you got it. And I do want to hit on this curse again. My lord, was this curse something that felt almost like torture? Like, you think, oh, I understand this curse. It's pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple. But then it's not only that there are nuances and details to the rules around it, but you kind of just get these heavier implications of, oh, this is going to have ramifications far beyond what is on the face value. And those ideas are fully realized. There are nitpicks you could have, like, oh, if you super overly analyze and think about what this curse would be and do, like, oh, this would be a thing. Don't be that guy. You can do the exact same thing for like time travel and Back to the Future, but we're just not going to do that because, you know, we like to have fun and enjoy our stories. And this book definitely feels like it's going faster and faster and faster and faster as you progress through it. And at first I was kind of just enjoying this slow speed up, but then once a ticking clock element is introduced, all of a sudden it just flips on a dime from a sense of like, oh, we're just kind of, oh, no, slow down. And that was such a clear narrative choice that was so viciously planted in the reader's gut. And it just, oh, yes. I have one final criticism. This is going to be extremely personal preference based, so put that caveat there. The last scene, the very last scene, I would have cut, and I would have ended this book with the scene before, and this is me putting my own projection onto the story. Do not take this as like a for sure criticism. This is just how it felt to me, and that is that it was, oh, we need to now hold the reader's hand and prove them something in this book, and I'm actually going to hit on this point more detailed in a spoiler section at the very, very end. But there was just one scene where it was like, oh, now we need to do some hand-holding to explain to the reader, and I did not like that. The Invisible Life of Addie Larue for me, though, is a solid 8 out of 10. It accomplishes, I believe, exactly what the author set out to do. It's remarkably poetic. You'd be a cold-hearted not to feel some really strong emotions reading it, and I don't think there are many changes that could be made to improve on what's presented, and I admire it in oh so many ways. Yeah, if you're super nitpicky about the rules at play, you could find some flaws. There's also some lulling and repetition at one point, but it never gets too severe, and I would have chopped the last very end scene, but that was just me. Aside from that, this is going to be a pillar of Schwab's career and something that I think many people will be pointing at for quite some time of how to do this type of story extraordinarily well. If you want to have some tears in your eyes, you want to go through something that's brutal and a bit different from what we get in typical fantasy genre, go ahead and pick this one up. It's a lot of fun. But let's go ahead and transition into a brief little bit of spoiler section. So if you have not read this one, piss off! We're getting into spoilers right now. So the last scene, Addie is with Look, I don't know how you're supposed to say that the whole time, and Lucifer, right, because they said loose for Lucifer, so I'll say loose, I guess. But they're in the bookstore, and we get told to us, explained to us, Addie is still fighting him, and she plans to fight him forever, and she plans on breaking his heart. I didn't like that because, yeah, that was like the point of everything building up to that. And in a book that never felt the need to hold its reader's hand and trusted the reader to figure out what was really happening, it felt a bit too much to then show us and have her like explain to us exactly the position she's in. And I would have preferred a bit more mystery, a bit more leave it up to you. And I would have absolutely ended it with the last line of us looking at the book and just seeing the line, I remember you. That would have been where I ended. So I guess like a little bit of the scene remaining, but just not nearly as much, not nearly as exposition-y about her intent as it ended on there. Because for me, it ended so solidly, and then we had this tonal shift into like a revenge tone that I just do not feel reflected what the reader was really set up for. I just didn't like that last bit. Up until that though, blown away, and I am a very big fan of this book, and it's one I'm probably going to put on my, I want to read it some nights where I want to feel things list. But this has been The Invisible Life of Addie Larue. Let me know what you think of this one in the comments down below. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Let me know what you think of it, because it's going to be one I think a lot of people enjoy, and I think maybe be a lot of readers' first introduction to a story like this, because there's a lot of Schwab fans out there who, from her Shades of Magic series, who probably haven't read this type of fantasy before. Anyway, guys, like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here, and have a good one, y'all. Peace. And of course, I'd like to record a special shout out to my latest high tier Patreon, Elizabeth Price. Hope you're having a great one.